Yes, excellent. Hello, viewer. I see you are here. I assume the one viewer is me! I'm still waiting on everyone. I will wait patiently, for I have until eternity. Yes. Oh, that means much, 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 much more to me than anything you have ever said, Mr. Schmidt. The sheer thought of your anus is exquisite. Truly it is. Truly it is. So you see, it is just you for now in my presence tonight. I am waiting on the rest of our ill-fated savants of their own art, if you will. Mr. Money and Mr. Vince, Mr. Shannon, if you will, whichever you prefer to call him. We'll be starting off with a story that comes from Churchview, I believe, Falls Church, Fairview, something like that. I dug deep for this tale because it means a lot to me. It was one that my father shared with me much as a child. But, alas, we are waiting for our other guests. So make yourself at home in the Sloth and Money Creepypasta and Scary Story Reading Extravaganza Spooktacular! or something. I'm probably gonna take the mask off and cut the shit because it's getting boring sitting here by myself waiting for people to come in. So we'll see what happens. So how you doing today, Mr. Schmidt? You were live on the air with us earlier, telling about your double rip pants. Is that kind of like double mint gum, double rip gum, something? I don't know what's going on. This is a failure. This is a failure. Yeah, it was really bad. I'm aware. It was awful. I was like, well, hopefully this doesn't lead to us getting blown the fuck out with negative comments. But guess what? We got negative comment. No, really, I don't know what happened. I'm sure it's assured that we will get negative comments about that shitty ass episode because it was awful. It was the least favorite episode I've ever done. I couldn't have hated it more. I hated that episode more than I hate myself, and I hate myself more than I hate the world. So think about that for a moment. You know how hot it is inside of this mask? I can't even drink my Gatorade, my black and white Gatorade. It's not how this works. It's not how any of this works. Oh, we got 3 people. Who's the third person watching? I'm just at least if I have 2 people, that's all I care about because I'm just practicing this shit. So when I do it live, what was I gonna say? So I'm doing it live. It's not a failure. Like right now, it's a complete failure. Yeah, no, the show was that bad, Mr. Orage, and uh-oh, we got people coming in, so I guess that means I can start the show. Shall I leave the mask on or take it off? On or off? On or off? Come on, guys. Give me some comments here. Alright, hey, yo, with your shirt in your face. Alright, yo? Eh? It's been like 10 minutes. I ain't even told the story yet, eh? Alright? Eh? But seriously, I'm gonna dim the mic a set. Well, dim the mic. Really? Am I that stupid? I'm gonna dim the camera, and then we're gonna go live for real. To get my finesse back in my mind, and yeah, something like that. Let's get ready to play a game, folks. All right, this shit's coming off. I hate it. It's awful. We don't respond. What do I do? I just do what I want to do. Is what happens. We're about to start this shit for real. All right, guys, you ready? The first story we're going to cover tonight takes place in Fairview. You may know it as a town in West Virginia. You may know it as a town quite close to you. Its true origins have been lost over the years, but anywhere where you will find decrepit and Just awful, rotten train tracks used up. This is probably where that story happened. It happened in a year not too far long ago, 1894. It was a foggy night, cool summer, not much unlike this one, you know. Heavy rains in the day leading up to the twilight hours led to the cooling and the fog rolling in. You see, back then, though, what trains did run at night, and they were heading west. The way they would communicate with the groundsmen, who would change the direction of the tracks when they would split off into a V, would be with flickering of lights, on and off from the train conductor to the groundsman. But on this night, you couldn't see those lights because of the fog. As the train was coming in, the groundsman stood his ground and waited for the train to approach him. He heard the toots of the train just calling out, much like spectral screams, because he couldn't see a thing, just dense fog and a train that he could hear barreling towards him. Choo-choo, choo-choo, choo-choo. As it neared him, he waited for the lights to flicker, on, off, to tell which direction it would be going, left, right. Will it be heading south? Will it be heading west? He did not know. The train neared him, and he could hear it chook-chook, chook-chook, chook-chook. As it came in, he waited for the light, and he could not see the light. So he waited. He waited as his lever. He put his body into it. And as the train neared, he saw the light flashing. And with a flashing light, you knew that it was going to continue heading west. But for some reason, the tracks were steadily heading south. He put his body weight into the lever, but you see, preventative maintenance did not exist in 1894, and it was a bit rusted into place. He had to put all of his force into it to finally make it budge, and the train's tracks were shifted. But as the train started to near, he saw that the light was actually steady. This means that it was not changing its direction, so he went back to the lever. The train was very close to him. He could hear the whistle crying out to him like spectral calls in the night. Through the fog, it bellowed to him. It beckoned to him. He threw his weight up into the lever. He threw himself, everything he had, into it. And he made it budge. But at this point, it was far too late for him. You see, as he finally shifted the train's tracks back to their normal position, the steps came by and severed his head. His limp body fell to the ground and the head rolled several feet away from him. The conductor of the train knew exactly what happened, and he hit the brakes. A screeching halt for several half miles. Just happened. Maybe 2, maybe 3 miles. I was not there, I can't tell you. But I can tell you that those people ran back to the body. The conductor, he carried his light with him, swaying it back and forth, looking for the severed head. After they finally walked the distance back to this post, they saw the severed head lying there. They followed the head and the bloody trail where the body should have been, but there was no body. They saw a trail of blood leading out into the woods. They figured maybe some stray dogs, something awful, carried that corpse into the woods. Well, on nights like this, you can see a headless body with its light in hand from the outpost, swaying its light in the distance, especially on foggy nights in this fair view. He's looking for his severed head. It's quite tragic, really. It's quite tragic. Let's go back to comments and see what everybody feels. Dancing Tom Dancing. Yeah, I'm just making this shit up as I go, so that's why it's really poorly done. If I had more time to rehearse and if I were actually not feeling really down on how today's show went and how the actual day itself went, it would have been better. I'm going to go ahead and lead into some short stories, very short stories, And there are 2 sentence-long horror stories, and we can gauge how good and bad they are. I'm not afraid of the cemetery. It's the only place that the ghosts don't follow me. I enter the empty elevator and push the button for my floor. As the doors close, I feel a hand cover my mouth. It's hard fighting the urge to hurt myself. My only comfort is knowing that I can hurt the girl in the trunk instead. When we bought the house, I assumed the scratches on the inside of the basement door were from a dog, but the neighbors say the previous owner didn't have one. This morning, the scratches had multiplied. She felt the heat as the flames engulfed the only house she had ever known. When the scream subsided, she smiled, knowing she was finally alone. I let my little girl sleep with me at night. I like to snuggle with her despite the increasingly pungent smell of her rotting flesh. My dog's muddy paws tell me it has been to the cemetery again. The footsteps in the hall tell me he has not returned alone, but this time I have my axe. The lights flicker. I put the pillow over my head so I can't hear the screams this time. The problem with sneaking out is that your parents have no idea where to look for you. By the time they find this cage, you will not be alive. I tell myself that the scratching sounds in the attic are probably squirrels. I choose to ignore the scratching sounds at my bedroom door, the ones from inside the closet, and the ones under the bed, even though I can feel them tearing through the bottom of my mattress. I hear my son scream, so I rush upstairs to comfort him back to sleep. He doesn't believe me when I say everything is okay, perhaps because he sees the creature that followed me to his room. I hesitantly scrolled through a website full of pictures of me sleeping and realized that in each image the strange man gets closer to my bed. In the one uploaded last night, he was lifting the blanket. The lake is so peaceful at night, he thought as he floated in the rowboat under the moonlight. The lake is so peaceful at night, he thought until he dipped his fingers into the water and something pulled him in to drown. He loved waking to sunlight on his face, but it was 3 a.m. The curtains were closed and the light was coming from an orb hovering above his head. Father, is that you? Finally, to his car, he drove away from there as fast as he could. When he felt safe enough to breathe, a voice from the back seat said, "Leaving so soon." There is nothing like the pitter-patter of little feet, hundreds of little feet, knowing they will climb into the bed and smother you unless you wake up right now. Wake up. He ran to the next house, but that door was locked too. The boy collapsed in exhaustion as he clawed, hand over hand, at the door. But he was dragged down, just like the others. Okay, Mama, I'll go to sleep and not talk about the man in my closet anymore. He's going to your room now, right? Right? They said I'd experience phantom limb syndrome when it would sometimes feel like my arm was still there. They didn't say I'd wake up with it strangling me. I burned the dolls, though my children cried. They did not understand my fear because they assumed I was who moved the dolls into their beds each night. There we go. That's those are the 20 stories that I found. I haven't gotten any updates recently on text, so I assume everybody's hating everything I'm doing, because I hate everything I do on a regular basis. All right, let's see where we stand here, guys. I'm gonna make up another one as I go along. This one will be about a group of people. I don't want to give it away. Just listen to the story. Also, I know everything sucks. I'm just doing this to get better at what I do. So the sun had risen again. The three adventurers, a male and two females. The two females were not much unlike. I was touching myself to... Oh, you were touching yourself to my voice. That's awesome. The two females were not much unlike. Blonde hair, tall, skinny. The male had brown hair, chiseled jaw. You know, your average handsome man. They had been dredging through these deserts for the last 3 days, watching the sun rise and set. It was odd, though. It's as if they heard a weird crashing in the distance, so they carried themselves toward it. There's a strange rustling outside. I'm sorry. My apologies. As they carried themselves, they realized, should we not be sunburned by now? The sun has been lapping at our flesh for the previous 3 days. We should be weak. We should be weary. We have not eaten. They continued to carry themselves, hulking towards the crashing noise. Dunes after dunes awaited them. They climbed through the hills of sand, and it seems they were getting closer to the crashing sound. The sun continued to beat down upon them. It was noon. It was noon. But yet hunger eluded them. Thirst was not part of their being. And yet they continued to move towards the crashing sound. As the sun began to set, they saw over the final ridge what had been making the crashing sound. A giant ocean standing right before them. But the hunger eluded them. They were neither sunburnt nor thirsty, and they moved their way towards the crashing sound. But right before they reached the water, giant hands grabbed them and put them back into their toy bucket, and they went back home. All right, let's see here. Trying to find some good stories here to entertain you guys. 10 of the spookiest stories that you'll ever hear. All right, this one I actually like. I like the story a lot because it's creepy, and I saw a better version of it one day. But I'll give you the one that I've got right in front of me. I grew up in New Mexico and was always very into the outdoors, hiking, camping, rock climbing, the like. One summer when I was 19, I went on a 4-day, 3-night camping trip near my parents' house on my own. It might sound weird, but I had been to this area many times and it was actually quite safe. I brought my camera and I took lots of pictures. When I came back and developed the film, there were 3 extra pictures I didn't take of me sleeping, one for each night. None of my things were missing or stolen, and nothing happened, but, that freaks the hell out of me. So when I was a kid, I would race up to the top of the stairs as fast as I could, like it was some sort of silly game. Well, I must have been 5 or 6 at the time. I'm not quite sure, but I know I was pretty little. Somewhere along the way, a voice at the top of the stairs started to whisper to me. It would make bets with me, such as, I bet you a penny you could make it to the top of the stairs. I don't really think there was a certain amount of time or anything. As I said, I was very little, so I probably didn't have any counting ability. I recall just sitting at the top of the stairs, having conversations with the voice about the betting, of course. Eventually the voice, it was like a whisper, a man's voice, not my own voice in my head, started to bet me my life. Instead of pennies, it'd say, I bet you your life you couldn't make it up to the stairs. As I got older, I never really thought about it all. I never mentioned it to anyone until one night I was sleeping at my brother's place. I was about 18 and he was about 22, and we were talking about spooky stories. Out of nowhere, I brought up the voice at the top of the stairs, and my brother got all quiet and weird. Before I ever mentioned the betting aspect, he said, "Did he make any bets with you?" We both looked at each other, horrified. It certainly was freaky after the fact. I don't really want to think about it personally anymore. A lot of bad things went down in my family at that period of time, and my mother, a very religious person, said there was a lot of evil in our lives at the time. I don't at all think our place was haunted, but it was built in the late 70s, and as I got older, I never experienced anything like that again. We went out camping once, driving through some city. My dad was driving, my mom on the passenger seat, and I was kneeling behind them, leaning on the boot that separated the truck from the camper. It was evening, not full dark. We weren't really talking, and my mom was looking out her window when she screams, "Oh my God, Gene, do you see it, Gene? Oh dear." My dad says, "Yeah, I do. I want to slow down and let him by." He slowed the car and let the ensuing car pass us. I couldn't see inside, but their window was down, and the arm hanging out the window looked like to be that of someone impossibly thin. I asked my mom what she saw, and she said it was nothing. My dad backed her up. Years later, I asked them about it again. My mom said it was a skeleton. There was no mask, because you could see right through the jaws. It had a tongue and eyes. It was death. My dad backed her up, but years later, after my mom was dead, he recanted, saying it was a mask, because nothing could survive like that. Let's see if we got any more comments. Tell the one about the China doll that comes to life and eats human flesh. Okay, let me look that up. The doll that comes to life and eats human flesh. Well, I'm getting no responses on that, but I'm just going to make it up as we go. Let me do a couple more short stories, and I'll make it back to you. When my older sister was born, my parents moved into a small house, and in that house, the laundry room was right across the kitchen table. My sister would often be seen waving and staring and giggling while looking into the laundry room. This behavior continued for a long time, and when she finally could talk, they asked her, who was she talking to? To this, she looked at them and said, "The little boy." To this, my parents asked if he was nice, and to this, she waited a moment and replied, "Yes." After this, she seemed to grow out of it and forgot all about it, and to my parents' relief, it was dismissed as an imaginary friend. They never mentioned it after that. When I was born, I exhibited the same behavior, and when I could talk, they asked me who I was talking to. To this, I replied, "The little boy." They once again asked me if it was nice, and I did the same thing as my sister, although a little different. "Yes," I replied, although I think he is lying. This story is called The Wrong Parents. When I was little, I used to wake up in the middle of the night and go into my parents' room and sleep next to my mom. One night when I was about 5 or 6, I had this really, really vivid dream where I woke up scared and went into my mom's room to sleep with her. When I went in, however, there was a set of parents on the bed, a set of identical parents on the floor. I instinctively knew in my dream that I had to wake up to the right parents because the wrong parents were evil. So I chose the parents on the floor. I distinctively remember thinking that the evil imposter parents would try to trick me, so I chose the parents on the floor. When I went over to the parents on the floor, they both opened their eyes, and where their eyeballs should have been, it was a bright, glowing red light. That was when I actually woke up. Being a scared little kid, I, of course, went right into my parents' room to sleep next to my mom. There was a set of parents on the bed and a set of parents on the floor. I literally pissed myself. The second set of parents was actually a pile of unfolded laundry, but I will never forget the fear that struck my 6-year-old heart in that moment. So, I'm gonna make this one up as I go along, so it's gonna be a really shitty story. You might come across them at yard sales, maybe thrift stores, consignment shops, but there are these odd dolls made around the year maybe 1700. They came not unlike from a lot of exports from China to America, but some say that these dolls are a little bit different. If you pull back the piece of clothing, the strap that secures them on the back, you'll see inscriptions. But these inscriptions aren't actually Chinese language. They're not Mandarin. They're not traditional. They're a curse. They're a curse that seals a soul inside of the doll. Now, I'm not saying when you go buy a China doll that you should check out the strap on the back and pull off the tiny little clothes to see if there's a curse. Because once you touch this curse, it's like it sucks a piece, like it knows. Because once it knows that you're the owner, I wouldn't advise that you sleep at night. You see, they know when you're breathing. They know when you're awake. And they will inch themselves off of your dresser, climb down, climb up through your bedpost. And they'll rest themselves, nuzzling right in the concave of your arm. And that's when you will be awakened, for they have a taste for human flesh. Some people are saying good job. I feel like it's a complete ass. All right, folks. Let's see here. Can we scroll yet? Nope. Not yet. I think I'm going to do a couple more, and then we're going to be done for the night, because it's been like 30 minutes. I just really wanted to get this going to try and get some good stuff going here, getting better at what I do. All right, this is another one I'm going to do on the fly. This is actually a dream I had, and it was probably one of my favorite dreams of all time. So I woke up in a pool. I was face down. It was a damp pool. I was on some rough ground. It was like a cave, but it wasn't a cave. It was, the ground was purple. You see, it was surreal, really. I saw a light dancing in the distance. It was kind of an unnatural light, but kind of like a campfire. You could hear crackling. So I decided to push myself up and inch myself towards the light on my weak body. As I inched towards the light, I peeked around the corner, and what I saw, I won't forget ever until my death. It was like a 9-foot tall, just black skin demon. Really, it had no pupils, and it had its eyes fixed upon me like it knew I was there. I don't even want to think about that day, really. He called to me. He said, he called my name, and I brought myself to him. I knew if I tried to run, he just would have struck me down anyways. So there's no point. And then he called my name again. I walked towards him, and there's just this swirling, dark pool in front of him. It was like oil. It was like a frothy oil spinning in front of him in some sort of weird pool. I can't explain it. He said, John, you're the new keeper. And he pointed at the black pool spinning in front of him. I said, what are you talking about? What's a keeper? You know? I don't have an idea what he's talking. My head is spinning, and I'm weak. Keeper. He looks at me again and says, you're the keeper. We have chosen you. My time has come to leave. I must return to the Aether. He pours a bottle from the side. He grabs it. He pours it into the spinning murky pool. He says, "We've spared you. You're one of the lucky ones." And at that time, the water, well, it was, I don't know, it was like mud, like oil. It turned clear, like, once again, like water, and it stopped spinning. He says, "We've chosen to spare you. You're the new keeper. We were watching over your world for several thousands of years, and this pool represents all the things that your people have done. You see, you have a fresh start now. We've created a new world for you to oversee. The thing is, we didn't see the point in continuing. There was no reason to cleanse your world anymore, unless we ended it." And those words, they ended it. They ended this world. I started having a panic attack on the spot because it started to become apparent to me this was not a dream anymore. This was not a dream. I looked at my hands, and the smells, it was just mold, just a musty damp. He says we had to eradicate them. We had to remove them. And in this moment, I thought of everyone I knew, all my loved ones, my wife, my parents, even Mark down the street. They've all been just dispersed, eradicated, dissolved into nothing. And I picked up this rock, and I threw it at him, and he didn't move. It hit him right in the head, and he fell to the floor. He wasn't moving. And it's like this choice that they gave me. This what I chose. I looked down at the pool, and the pool started to turn. It started to spin, and it turned a deeper, darker color of black. And that's my story about that's one of my dreams that I had. I know it's a creepy one. Not creepy, but in the dream it was creepy. Telling it was probably just shitty. Let's see. Can I come up with one more good story that we can end our night on here? Thank everybody. Thank everybody for coming out. All three of you. Good job, guys. Thank you. Thanks, guys. You're really helping me get better at what I do. Alright, we'll see how this story goes. I don't like that one. This story's probably garbage, but I'm going to try it. So when I was barely 20 years old, I was traveling with a small group of people through China, and we were spreading through the Qinghai province. It had been about 4 months, which used to be part of Tibet, actually. Our destinations were a specific town. We were going there to teach English, but we'd been stopping often in towns and small cities along the way. One day we arrived in a rural town, very small. Nothing unusual, really, in China. We spent only a couple of days there shopping for food at the markets and walking around to see the sights, although there really weren't many. At the end of winter in February, and all of the grass on the hills and plains around town were dead and brown. The overall feeling was that of a normal kind of bleakness that any rural place has during the wintertime. At this time of my life, things were going actually quite amazingly, extraordinarily well for me, and I say because of my teenagehood had been rather dark, actually. The overwhelming good luck of being able to travel and have my close friends that I'd made in the last year or so, it really changed my feelings towards life. It was like I was a whole new person, actually. I was ecstatic to be in Tibet, and I got to actually fall asleep with a smile on my face every night. On our second day staying in this small town, I woke up feeling a little bit odd. Not bad, just odd. Like my normal thoughts and feelings had been turned down low, like on a dial. We all decided to go for a walk on the hills right behind the town, where there was a small summit with a pile of rocks and some prayer flags. There were little altars like this all over China, but we never paid much attention to them. As we hiked up the hills behind the town, I started feeling stranger and stranger. I wasn't scared, and I didn't feel angry or any strong emotion. In reality, factually, it was like emotion was trickling out of me somehow. I was getting blanker and blanker, emptier and emptier. My mind started feeling a little bit hazy, and more I felt like I simply just didn't care about anything. A small and rapid dwindling part of myself just started to panic. I knew that something bad was happening, but it was like my own inner voice was slowly getting quieter and quieter. I remember we reached the little summit, and I simply sank to the ground next to the pile of rocks. Without meaning to, I started tuning out the voices around me and fixed all my attention to the little pebbles in the dirt. I began tapping one against the other, repeatedly. Do you know the kind of horror that is the opposite feeling of scared or feeling anything at all, for that matter? The kind of hideousness of a fly buzzing against a closed window for hours on end in an empty room. That's what I was feeling. That's what was filling my mind. It was almost demonic in its meaninglessness. I touched my face and I felt that I was grinning at nothing. Through all the emptiness, a thought floated to the forefront of my mind. You should just die. At first it sounded totally reasonable, but something in me fought it, and I was momentarily troubled. Right then my group started to walk down from the hill, and I followed. The further we walked, the more normal I felt, until we left the town that afternoon, and I was totally freaked out. When another girl, Hannah, mentioned in an odd offhand way that she had felt very strange and depressed while staying there, I told her I felt the same. When the group leader mentioned that a local had told him that the town had been plagued with a rash of young women under 25 committing suicide, Hannah and I went white. Obviously, that was told from the standpoint of a woman, but it's still a pretty fucking good story. I love that. Well, let's see here, guys. I believe it's been almost about 45 minutes here, so I think I'm gonna call it a night. But thanks to the 3 people coming out and watching me. Oh boy, it was actually pretty fun, even though I completely suck ass at this. So I'll turn off the camera and the audio, and I'll listen to your comments in the YouTube thing. Yay, YouTube thing.